Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's betterhelp.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space, ready to give you guys this week's food for thought. I busted out a little bit of the Tiger trained line from Tie Gear Apparel. A whole bunch of stuff here, hats, tank tops, t-shirts, slides, you name it, all in this collection. It's also 90 degrees with a lot of humidity today on Long Island, so the tank top felt like a really good idea. But nonetheless, back in my home recording space, ready to give you guys this week's food for thought, ready to get you guys prepped and ready mindset-wise for the week. So as we're recording today, I wanted to talk to you guys about something that I'm talking to the kids in my school about this week. And honestly, I'll be talking to the adults about it too, but big on the mind for kids. And that is the idea of toughness in martial arts, right? And a lot of people have the misimpression that when I say toughness in regards to martial arts, I simply mean fighting ability. I simply mean the ability to keep going, under tremendous punishment, right? Like, if we think about in cinematic history, the character of Rocky very tough, right? He gets hit, he gets cut, he gets bruised, he's all swollen up, and he just keeps coming. Ironic, like that was kind of like the whole thing in Rocky 3. He's getting hit by Clubber Lang, but he just keeps coming forward. Though, of course, we know, like, physiologically it doesn't work that much. That, like, it was really kind of funny if you analyze the final fight scene. He just kind of decided midway through the fight that Clubber Lang couldn't hurt him anymore, and like was just taking Clubber's best punches, and no, these aren't hurting at all, but obviously they would. But nonetheless, we often think of that as tough when it comes to martial arts. We think about the person's ability to push themselves and keep going. And yes, toughness is definitely something that plays a part of the actual fight, 100%. But I think the real toughness takes place leading into the fight for a pro fighter. And in an everyday martial artist, a hobbyist, really most of the people who train with me, that toughness is similar but different, right? I want you to take a step back with me, to take a step forward, to understand where I'm going and why I'm going there. So firstly, think about the term martial arts, martial, military-like. When we think of the military, we think of highly, highly, highly disciplined. We think of boot camp, where you're running, and no matter how exhausted you are, you keep going. And you stop going, and the drill sergeants are screaming in your face to keep going, right? And we think of that as military-like. And we think of, as much as we think about combat, maybe we think about the most extreme environments in the world, and how, despite the extreme circumstances, they keep performing. And obviously martial arts draws a lot of its mindset and a lot of its discipline and everything from the military and from military-like mindsets. So with that in mind, if we're thinking about being military-like, we're thinking about performing in spite of heavy resistance, even with extreme things going on around us. That's tremendously huge. That's really, really important, right? And that's where, if we're going to take this now back to the sport of martial arts, I think that that military-like mindset, that real toughness, comes into play. And why do I mean? Well, simple. For you to show up and to get into a cage or a ring with another human being who's going to try to punch and kick you, and you're going to try to punch and kick them, and wrestle them and whatever, jiu-jitsu and all that. When you're thinking about that, yes, that requires a very big degree of toughness, because the vast majority of the world will never do anything even close to that. Even if they only do like something like a wrestling match or a jiu-jitsu match, like most people will never do even that, let alone actual, not that wrestling is in combat, but actual like physical combat, punches, kicks, all that. So most people won't even do a wrestling or jiu-jitsu match, let alone a boxing, kickboxing, karate, whatever kind of fight, or MMA kind of fight. But nonetheless, to actually step in the ring and to be tough for the period of time the fight is not that impressive. I mean, if we think about anybody, the actual competition is only a couple of minutes long. I mean, you think about a jiu-jitsu match 3 or 4 minutes, kickboxing fight, 3 2-minute rounds, an amateur MMA fight, 3 3-minute rounds. So really at its maximum, we're talking about being tough for 12 minutes, which is not that impressive, right? If you do anything for that period of time, it's not that. I played violin for 12 minutes. It's not that impressive, right? It's not that tough. Where the toughness shows its face is in the preparation, is in all the hard work leading up to it. I mean, think about it. If you were going to be impressed with someone being tough, would you be more impressed with 12 minutes of it or 12 weeks of it? Obviously, the 12 weeks. And it is much, much harder to be disciplined for 12 weeks. Or, though most camps are 8 to 10, we'll just keep using that 12 figure because that's what I used in terms of minutes. So if you think about that, right? 8 to 12 weeks now of you being super tough. Not only tough in your training, not only showing up and putting 100% in. That, I would say, every athlete would have an easy time doing. If it's what you love to do, to go and put your best effort in is not outside the realm of possibilities. It's not something that's foreign. But to come back the next day and do it all again, and the next day and do it all again, while you're also doing extra strength and conditioning sessions, while you're also eating super clean, while you're also not, drinking anything really besides water, maybe a cup of coffee in the morning, like when you're doing all of those things on top of the hard training and doing it day after day after day after day, not taking a single day off because you're tired or whatever, or you just don't feel it that day, like actually sticking to your schedule, that's a whole different level of toughness. Like I happen to know of a guy, I follow him on Instagram. He's a former Tiger Schulman's instructor and fighter, he's black belt, and he moved down to Florida and he's training with one of the gyms that has fought in flex fights a couple of times, and he's preparing for a fight in a couple of weeks. And he shared his training schedule, and most days it's 2 sessions a day, and I'm sure over an hour for each session. And, that includes strength and conditioning. That includes jiu-jitsu, wrestling, kickboxing, sparring, you name it, it's all there. Right? And then, everything, the only days, so he had one session was Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday was a rest day. But think about it, he rests, his body takes one day off on Sunday. And then he grinds Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then, he only does one session on Friday, only does one session on Saturday, which I'm sure are still very tough sessions. Think about how beat up he is going into that Saturday session, how beat down his body must feel. Right now, of course, he's a guy who takes his exercise physiology and recovery very seriously. He's actually, runs businesses in that regard. But still, even with doing all that right, it's not like he doesn't have the bumps and the bruises on top of just the exercise fatigue. So to get back up the following morning and to approach it with the same enthusiasm, that's where real toughness lies. That's where real toughness is. Now, will that aid him in the 9 minutes he'll be competing, taking away all the rest time in between rounds? In that, 12 minutes or so that he's, competing at his best, at his highest level, is that all that sacrifice and the going with all the bumps and bruises, and even though he might not feel it or feel the motivation continuing to do it, will that help him in those 12 to 15 minutes? 100% it will. It most definitely will. Because then because as we know, most sports competition is more psychological than it is physiological. When he's got to dig deep, when he's got to keep that push going, even when he wants to give up or slow down or whatever, when he's feeling it, right? Maybe his opponent's putting pressure on him. Maybe his opponent hits him with a good shot or something like that. He'll have the strength of will to keep going because he's worked his toughness over those preceding weeks, over and over and over again. Every time he trained when he didn't want to, every time he pushed out that extra rep, even though he wasn't feeling it. Those are all things that are going to contribute to his mindset come the day of the competition. And of course, all the training that he leads into it will help him physiologically, but more importantly, it's all going to help him psychologically as well, right? And when it comes down to real true toughness, more of it is psychological than physiological. And I feel like we've had this conversation in the past on the show, but I'd be remiss not to use this example again, because it's one I use in my classes all the time, right? The single most common request I get from kids during the day as they're taking their classes is, can I go to get a drink of water? And I always say no. I look at the clock, do the quick math about how many more minutes till class is over. So, class is over in 22 minutes. So I'll be, in 22 minutes, you can get a drink of water. To the point where now when a kid's been training me for a while, they don't even ask anymore. And, I've had a parent or two wonder why. Like, why not give them a drink of water? Well, let's start at the basics, right? We're talking about kids. What happens if one kid has a drink of water? Well, then every kid's going to want a drink of water. And then what's going to happen the next time? Are they only going to want one drink of water anytime they're uncomfortable in the 45-minute class? No. And then what, mom and dad want to give them a drink off their water bottle? So no, every time the kid's a little uncomfortable or wants a little bit of a mental timeout, they run over to mommy and daddy to get a drink of water? That's terrible. Now we get so much less done. So there's that, number one. Number two, physiologically, exercise science-wise, do they need a drink of water within 45 minutes? No, they don't. They really don't. Honestly, if they train 2 classes back to back, an hour and a half, they probably don't need it there either, especially if they've done a good job hydrating to that point in the day. They just don't need it, right? Their bodies don't need it at that level. It's something that was ingrained in me for a very, very long time. Like even when I go and I train other places, even if I'm away and stuff like that, like, you know, a lot of places in an hour class, half an hour in, we'll be like, all right, everybody water break and get your mouthpiece or whatever. And I never take the drink of water because it was indoctrinated in me so long ago that it's just foreign to me. Like I rarely even bring my water bottle into a training session. Like it just doesn't come. It just doesn't. Because I know that for the physiological benefit, oh, it's better if you drink water. Marginally, like such a tiny little amount that that all the detractions psychologically are not worth the physiological benefit, right? Well, what do I mean, right? Why does a kid, an adult, whatever, why do they want to drink water in the middle of a class? Because they're hot, they're uncomfortable, right? Their mouth's dry from training so hard. So then they go right away and they get comfortable? That sounds like exactly counterintuitive of the mindset of improvement, right? If you always stay comfortable, you never truly improve, right? Think about, let's just take this to the idea of just strength training, to wrap our head around it in a very simple sense. If you're only ever going to do the amount of push-ups that you are comfortable with, will you ever grow stronger? No, of course you will not. There is no way possible for you to grow stronger doing the same number of push-ups forever, right? You might get more efficient at them. You might get better at them. But are you really making growth? No, growth happens by doing more, right? Think about someone who lifts weights. If you lift weights, do you want to do the same weight with the same reps forever? No, you either want more weight or more reps all the time. You want to constantly be increasing that. So you're constantly putting strain on your muscle so it'll constantly grow, right? So if we understand that that discomfort plays such a big part in us getting ourselves better physically, that we understand psychologically this as well. That yes, oh, that cold drink of water feels so good when it hits my mouth. Yeah, but like, why? Why are we in such a hurry to be comfortable, right? It's like, I always have a good laugh at Kai's expense, because Kai, like most kids his age, is very, very, very involved with screens, specifically his phone. That's definitely the biggest one. And when Kai wakes up in the morning, we have a deal with him that we leave his phone locked until he eats his breakfast and until he has an entire glass of water. And once we see he's done that, then we will unlock his phone for the day and he can start accessing his screen time. But then the funny thing is, he's at my school, right? He'll take class. He's on his screen until the moment he's about to step on the mat, even if his friends are in the building. His friends are still in the building and they're looking to hang out with him after class. He still has to go and watch a TikTok or two first before. He goes, why? Because it's like his brain's little comfort food. He needs that little serotonin rush he gets from that right away before he's even willing to go hang out with his friends. And even that, sometimes I have to be like, dude, you have 3 kids out there waiting for you. Why are you in here watching TikTok? He's like, oh, and then he goes, right? It's the same thing when it comes to that little drink of water in class, right? Think about it in a gym environment. Everybody's got a water bottle with them. How many of them truly need the water throughout the course of their workout? Very few. And even still, how do most people use it? Most people use that drink of water as a crutch. They use it as a way to take their break and make it longer. Now, does that mean I don't believe that you get hydrated? Of course, you guys know I'm a very big proponent of hydration. Obviously, I do a commercial for LMT. I take one of their supplements, at least one of their supplements every day, sometimes more. On a daily today where I'm sweating a lot, I'll probably take more. But nonetheless, I know how important hydration is, but I also know how important discomfort is. And I know that in terms of a one training session, the water break, what it's going to do for you physiologically, right? The scale only weighs so high, right? What it's going to do for you psychologically, like boom, there's no comparison as to what it's going to do to forego that little bit of comfort, right? Because that mindset, that little setting in our brain to forego the drink of water, that is the same setting in our brain that allows us to push out the extra push-up when we're tired, or the extra squat when we're tired, or the extra round kick on the bag when we're exhausted and we feel like we can't do anymore, or the extra punching combination, or that little last burst of speed, or that little burst to get out of a trap position in jiu-jitsu. Like all of those things, they all come from the same place, psychologically. Physiologically, obviously different places, but psychologically all from the same place. Do you have the ability to keep pushing when others would give in? Right? Do you have it in you to dig deep? That is huge. The ability to dig deep goes above and beyond any physical skill, right? Because we know that, let's go back to the sport of martial arts for a while. We know that a quote-unquote fight, whether it be a jiu-jitsu match, a wrestling match, a boxing match, kickboxing, MMA, whatever, there will be adversity. It is, we've seen very, very, very few fights where there's zero adversity, meaning one person comes out, the other person comes out, one of those two throws a punch, and the other person falls down. Fight's over, right? We see that so rarely. Or we see the person who, in wrestling, takes them down, immediately gets the top position, immediately pins them. Matter of seconds. Don't see it that often. Same thing in jiu-jitsu. You don't see it where the person blows the other person out. You just don't see it. More than don't tell me it doesn't. Don't get me wrong. It does happen, right? But it's such a minority of the time that for us to always think that's going to be the case is very, very, very poor. We can't think that way. If instead we are preparing for a sport, we have to prepare for the worst. We talked about this just a few weeks ago, preparing for the worst. But then, more importantly, when we're preparing for the worst, we have to make sure that we are ready psychologically for the worst as well, to go through the fire, so to speak, right? To be able to push for all of that time. And that is such a huge advantage psychologically. But then outside of the world of combat, that ability to keep going where others would give in, that ability to step on that gas, that little bit extra, is tremendous. So few people have it, right? Like, if you watch any of the great motivators online, and there's a great many of them, just David Goggins comes to mind, right? Andy Elliott comes to mind. Andy F., whose last name is escaping me at the moment, he comes to mind, right? And there's so many more people who are super motivational that we see online. These are just the first that come to mind. What they all have in common is the most common piece of advice is don't quit. Well, where do we want to quit? We want to quit in those moments of discomfort. We want to quit when it's tough. We want to quit when it's uncomfortable. But if we constantly face discomfort, and then as soon as we are uncomfortable, we sever ties with what we're doing and we move on to the next, what have we taught ourselves? But over and over and over again, to give up when things get tough. It's as much a psychological training as doing a push-up. Just like in martial arts, when you train yourself to keep the one hand by your face while you punch with the other one. Just like that's a learned behavior that you have to teach yourself over and over and over again. The ability to be tough and to not give in to the adversity, that is such a learned behavior. It's something we need to work on as often as we can. And those moments of discomfort, things like being a little thirsty or having a little bit of a dry mouth and still performing anyway, those are huge for those moments of toughness. Things like not giving up when you feel like you don't have anything left for another round kick or push-up or strength training maneuver or whatever. Finding those extra couple repetitions, finding that last little bit of work, finding that explosion to get out of that jiu-jitsu position, that all stems from the same exact place. From the ability to be uncomfortable, but to be performing in spite of the discomfort, right? We think about bravery. The definition of bravery, people think, is the absence of fear. It's not. It's not the absence of fear, but instead the ability to perform in spite of it. Toughness is not that we don't face adversity or we don't give in to adversity. It's that we face adversity, but we continue to persevere anyway. So that's the thought I want to leave you with as we close the show today, guys. Right? That's all I have for you guys, as always. You guys can reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Sensei James Leonelli. On Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Sensei_Leonelli. You can find the podcast on Instagram at Sensei's Weekly Mindset. Find out more about my school by going to tsmasmithtown.com. You can also go find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Tiger Schulman Smithtown. On Twitter and Instagram, we are at TSMMA_Smithtown. You can find out more about the Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole at tsk.com. You can head to my Linktree, find all of our sponsor information there. Sponsorship opportunities still available. We have a returning sponsor coming soon. I'll be talking about them in the very near future. If you guys are interested as well, by all means reach out to me any of the ways that I gave you. In addition to finding sponsor information on my Linktree, anything Flex Fights is there, anything Tiger Schulman's is there. Lots of stuff there for you to find on my Linktree. Other than that, guys, make sure that you guys leave a rate and review. It just helps. I love seeing when you guys review the show. Make sure that you guys subscribe, get your new episodes every Wednesday. But the most important thing you can do for me, guys, please share the podcast. It is the greatest compliment you can give me, and it is the only form of advertising that I have. So when I see you guys do it, it means the world to me. So thank you very much for doing it, guys. Other than that, my friends, until next time, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.